Most horror movies want to keep the audience guessing about the killer's true identity until that inevitable third act reveal. But some filmmakers are admittedly better than others at keeping the audience in suspense and preventing them from figuring things out ahead of time, while others do love to drop hints to make rewatches all the more rewarding. And with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 horror movie villains who gave themselves away immediately. Number 10, Detective Schenk, Spiral from the Book of Saw. Even before Saw spin-off film Spiral was released, many fans predicted that the Jigsaw killer copycat would be Detective Zeke Banks' partner, William Schenk, because honestly, he kinda just had an incredibly dodgy vibe from the trailers alone. And while it became incredibly obvious that Schenk was the movie's killer when he became the first character in Saw history to die off-screen, I mean seriously, I still can't get over that they expected us to buy that at all, he actually outed himself much earlier than that. That's because right at the start of the film, Banks is introduced to his new partner, and when Banks tells him, "You don't want to be my partner," Schenk quickly replies with, "You don't know that. Your dad's the reason for all of this. He's why I wanted to do this in the first place." And really, that's all you need to know, that Schenk is the villain. He's literally spelling out his motivation in plain sight, that he became a killer because Zeke's police chief father protected corrupt cops, one of whom killed his own dad. Even the tone with which he speaks the dialogue feels distinctly sinister, ensuring Spiral was by far the most disappointingly predictable of all the Saw movies. Number 9, Frank Dodd, The Dead Zone. The episodic nature of the Dead Zone's narrative, which sees coma victim Johnny, played by Christopher Walken, wake up and discover he has the power to foresee past and future tragedies of the people he touches, means there are a few villains along the way. And one of the main plots covers the search for a local serial killer, who is picking off women across town. Stumping the police and leaving no evidence, Johnny is called in to use his supernatural abilities to figure out who the culprit is. However, the audience probably didn't need the same psychic abilities to guess, as the reveal is signposted pretty much from the scene this plot is introduced. That's because when the sheriff initially goes to Johnny for help, he's accompanied by his deputy, Frank Dodd. And keep an eye on Dodd in this scene, and you'll notice that he's trying to talk the sheriff out of going inside to speak to our hero. While you might just chalk this up to pure skepticism, when the cop does go inside, Dodd stays behind, and the camera shifts to focus on him, who nervously watches his superior walk away. It's a clear sign that Dodd knows more than he's letting on, and is probably scared that he'll be found out then and there as the actual serial killer. Number 8, Vic Van Allen, Deep Water. Deep Water is a captivating mess of a movie, an often unintentionally hilarious erotic horror starring Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. Affleck's character Vic is a jealous, possessive guy who somehow found himself in an open marriage with de Armas's Melinda. And while he says he's trying to be fine with it, you can tell from moment one that he's absolutely fuming with the way his wife flaunts her new boyfriends in front of him. It seems then like it's just a matter of time before he snaps, and it doesn't take him long. Cornering her new lover and warning him that the last time Melinda got involved with someone, Vic literally killed the guy with hammers and disposed of his body. Yeah, kind of an unhinged thing to say to someone, really. Naturally, Melinda and everyone else Vic knows is freaked out by this admission. And while Vic just says he was joking, just stupidly trying to threaten the guy out of his life, the fact that Melinda's last boyfriend did indeed disappear without a trace raises suspicions. And, well, you can probably see where this is going. Yep, it turns out that Vic wasn't lying at all, and eventually has to kill more people to hide the secret that he let loose in the first place. Number 7, Will Benson, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. In the case of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer's killer, Will Benson, the guy was clearly having fun hiding the truth in plain sight. Enough that anyone who really stopped and thought about his name could probably piece it all together. As Will himself reveals to Julie James at the end of the movie, he's actually the son of Ben Willis, the murderous fisherman from the first film, and his name was a huge clue. Will Benson, of course, being literally Will Ben's son. Attentive audience members should be onto him the moment his name is first mentioned by Julie's friend Carla in his very first scene. And if that's not obvious enough, he ends up being the source of a jump scare moments later when Julie thinks she sees Ben Willis in a nightclub. Number 6, Leonard Marliston, Cherry Falls. Cherry Falls' B-movie premise sees the teens of a small Virginia town being picked off by a deranged killer, who is eventually revealed to be the most immediately dodgy character in the movie, that being English teacher Leonard MARLISTON. Even if you're somehow able to ignore the fact that actor Jay Moore has been cast against type as a bespectacled teacher and seemingly inconsequential character, one of his first interactions with protagonist Jodie is a dead giveaway. Here, Leonard mentions that he heard Jodie broke up with her boyfriend Kenny, which beyond being a wildly inappropriate comment for a teacher to make to a student, is a neon signposted early indication that he's overly invested in the romantic relationships of the town's youth. And with the students confiding information in him, he'd therefore be capable of figuring out who's a virgin and who isn't as per his MO, and then being able to pick his victims. And so it's not remotely shocking when, despite the movie suggesting that the killer might be female, Leonard is later revealed to be the culprit. Number 5. Detective Bailey, Scream 6. Scream 6 is unfortunately the most predictable film in the series, with by far the most guessable trio of killers. The ringleader is eventually revealed to be Detective Wayne Bailey, who is the father of one of the previous film's killers, Richie Kirsch. And early on it's mentioned that the new Ghostface is dropping the masks of previous killers at their crime scenes, each also containing DNA from the said killers as well. And gee, which of the movie's characters would have easy access to something like that? Well, of course, a cop, and because it clearly wasn't going to be Kirby, it had to be Detective Bailey. But Bailey shines a light of suspicion upon himself from minute 1, when we literally see him standing over the scene of Jason Carvey's murder, again visually reminding us that he has access to evidence that literally nobody else in the movie does. Bailey seals the deal with his next scene though when he questions Sam and Tara about Jason's death, and very abruptly rules out his own daughter Quinn as a suspect, because of course she's also one of his fellow killers. And on top of this, just generally, doesn't actor Dermot Mulroney just kind of bring that murderous vibe? The guy's got a great voice and piercing eyes, which should have made him a great red herring, if not for the fact that he was just a plainly predictable villain. Number 4, Adam Harrison, The Kraft Legacy. The evil stepfather is a trope as old as time itself, and one that The Kraft Legacy rather predictably engaged in. In the opening moments of the movie, protagonist Lily heads to the home of her mother Helen's boyfriend Adam, and literally a second before he comes out to greet them, a giant snake slithers across his lawn. And really, could the movie be any more blatantly saying that this man is literally a snake? It's a visual metaphor writ large, and the fact that Lily is also very obviously uncomfortable around Adam when he goes to hug her moments later just makes his villainy that much more blatant. And so, was anyone shocked when Adam did reveal himself ultimately to be the big bad, a member of a pagan cult who wishes to take Lily's supernatural gifts for himself? That and casting the laid-back David Duchovny is the easiest way to hide your villain in plain sight. Number 3. Bubba Jenkins' Nail Gun Massacre. The motorcycle helmet-wearing killer in Nail Gun Massacre is eventually outed as Bubba, the owner of the local lumberyard who also happens to be the secret brother of Linda Jenkins, who was sexually assaulted at the start of the film. Yet Bubba hilariously doesn't even try to hide his seething rage. In his very first scene, Bubba is approached by 2 central characters looking for work, and after sending them on their way, the camera pulls in tight on him as he says, "Yeah, I'll be seeing you sooner than you think." Couple this with the fact that a lumberyard will almost certainly have a nail gun lying around somewhere, and Bubba makes basically negative effort to have the audience suspect anyone else, despite the fact that his pre-reveal screen time is just a mere couple of minutes. Number 2. Roy Burns' Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. The 5th Friday the 13th movie was an interesting bind given that Jason Voorhees was quite unambiguously killed off at the end of the 4th film, and so fans were left wondering who would take up the mantle from this point on. The most obvious candidate was of course Tommy Jarvis, who killed Jason at the end of the previous film, yet the real killer this time around ends up being Roy, a random paramedic who was briefly glimpsed attending the scene of Joey Burns' murder in the opening scene. Except Roy is also later revealed to be Joey's father, who went insane following his son's death and assumed Jason's identity while embarking on a vengeful copycat killing spree. And the fact that Roy absolutely can't hide how disturbed he is when he sees his son's body looking off creepily into the distance for a few sustained seconds is really enough to make it clear that he's not some inconsequential character that we won't be seeing again. Number 1, Laurie Spengler, Happy Death Day. Now, in fairness, Happy Death Day does make a fairly decent effort to throw suspicion away from its baby mask-wearing time loop killer, eventually revealed as Tree's housemate Laurie, but that doesn't mean attentive audiences can't easily peg her from the start. After all, there are only 2 prominent characters who are relatively nice to Tree and would therefore make for suitably surprising killer reveals, those being classmate Carter and Laurie. But the case for Laurie is much stronger from the start. Beyond her generally uptight vibes and stiff facial expressions when Tree rolls into her room at the beginning, she also can't disguise just how genuinely off she is when Tree throws the cupcake that she made for her, which is later revealed to be poisoned, by the way, in the bin. And even if you still haven't figured it out, there's another dead giveaway midway through the movie when Tree is trapped in a cop car that's subsequently blown up. That's because here the killer actually uses a cupcake candle to light the trail of gasoline, which pretty much confirms Laurie's villainy beyond any doubt. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What did you think about these horror villain reveals, and are there any others that was signposted from scene 1? Let me know, and while you're down there, if you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.